Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Now What, the podcast where we have professionals from varying occupations come join us and tell their story, including how they got there, since no path is the same. I am your host, Yashfin,
I'm your host, Chelsea.
and today we are joined by Adam Anderson, Director of Sales Marketing for Hotel Eleo. Adam, could you tell us a bit about yourself and where you grew up before we begin?
Sure. So my name's Adam Anderson. As you said, I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at the Hotel Eleo, which is actually UF Health and located right here in Gainesville, Florida. I grew up in St. Augustine, Florida, and I moved to Gainesville in 1999. I transferred from one college to another and started attending Santa Fe.
Thank you.
Thank you. I visited St. Augustine once, and that place was really beautiful. How was it like growing up there?
It was amazing. I was very blessed and fortunate to be there because you got a little bit of big city mixed with still local small town community there because a lot of the business comes from outside in tourism. But after the 9 to 5 and the tourists are gone, you're still left with the local people and the local community.
Was the difference... Sorry, Chelsea. Yeah, was the difference drastic from St. Augustine to Gainesville for you?
I wouldn't say drastic because we still have the springs in Alachua County, so it's still some fresh water, not the salt water. But the demographics certainly changed. In St. Augustine, it was a little bit more older. In Gainesville, you had a college, transient demographic, more of the 18 to 24.
I see.
Yeah, definitely. So we're gonna first get started with our icebreakers, and the first question that we had is that if your life had a theme song, what would it be?
Stay alive.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So that'd be my theme song, and that's what you do in sales. Staying alive. You don't win every day, but you keep pushing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good message.
Mhm.
What about you, Yashvin?
If I had to do one, maybe party in the USA. I try to live every day like a party. Make sure everything is upbeat and fun, memorable even. What about you, Chelsea?
I think for me, I would pick okay, yeah, this is hard. Uh I'm gonna pick the same one as you, Ashwin. I also like Party in the USA.
Good pick.
Yeah, try to, enjoy it now, especially, while you're young and explore everything, which is what this podcast is for. And our next question is that would you rather be able to talk to animals or speak every language fluently?
I'd pick speak every language fluently because I believe in certain ways we can already talk to animals. All living things communicate with us in one way or another. It's just, are we receptive to hearing and understanding it?
I have to agree with Autumn. I definitely think I didn't consider it from his perspective because for me, I was more like, oh, I would love to connect with everyone around the world rather than taking into account that we already are receptive of animals if we pay attention enough. But for me, I would say every language. I think connecting with other cultures is always fun.
Yeah, and that's also my answer too. I love exploring about like different people and cultures and being fluent in every language will like certainly make everything a lot more easier, and I think you'll just get a deeper understanding of like the people around you and our world too. So I don't know, there's just so much I feel like there's so much to gain from that.
I like the thought of when you learn a different language, you learn a different way to think. You get a whole new perspective on life. So imagine all the perspective we get with every language in the world. That'd be amazing.
Oh, really? It would be. Okay, and our last question, for this, our last icebreaker question is what's like the first thing that you sold, either as a kid and professionally?
As a kid, we all get stuck with them fundraisers and we're out there pushing candy bars for either books for school, football jerseys, baseball jerseys. So those would probably be the first things I sold just like most kids, for your Boy Scout troop or whatever you're involved in. Professionally, the first thing I sold was hotel rooms, um, and it was to a Smurf group, which is uh, sports and fraternal. So it was a baseball team coming here to play the Gators.
Yeah, that's very neat.
Gators.
Okay.
Yeah, as a kid, I I used to be very invested in making jewelry, and one of the things I did was experiment with resin. So I made resin rings and sold those rings for a short time in my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's
I
cool.
definitely learned a lot about marketing and sales at the moment. And honestly, I kind of wish I continued with it. I think I was lacking motivation because the pandemic began too. So it became
Right.
difficult to kind of facilitate that in the midst. But I think it would have been nice to see where it could have gone if that didn't happen, or even continue it after it did happen.
Definitely. I think for me, the first thing I sold was probably like it was like fundraiser things too. I remember at the like selling like rubber ducks or like some pastries for like my band program back in school. And yeah, it was always so awkward. I never liked doing them. I hated approaching people and be like, "Can you give me money for something that you'll probably get in the future?" Like, yeah, that was always kind of awkward.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, even if it was awkward, it was also kind of fun because maybe this is a bit manipulative or like technically it was honest on my part, but for the chocolates in specific, everyone went crazy over the crunchy chocolate bars, right?
Yeah.
And those would also sell out the quickest. And what would be left in the box of chocolate? The almond bars. So I would kind of be like, oh, you guys, like the almond one actually tastes like the crunchy one, maybe even better. I think there's a better crunch. And that's what got it to sell a bit more. And I was speaking like my honest truth, but at the same time, people may not agree, but it did get the chocolate sold.
That's nice. That's the same thing restaurants use as an upselling tactic.
Now that we got to know a bit more about each other in terms of things not so related to sales and also related to sales, our first question for you, Adam, is did you ever participate in any career exploration in high school? As in, like, was sales something that you already knew you wanted to do in high school?
So I worked various different jobs in high school. I did not know the sales is where I was going to end up. Life's a series of steps, and sometimes your career can be that way as well. So I worked. I was a cowboy. I worked in a lawn service. Uh, typical electrician jobs in between summer jobs, but nothing doing with sales until later in life.
Hmm, very neat. What was your favorite job that you did in high school at the time?
Oh, my favorite job in high school, I did a summer where I was like a lifeguard where you got volunteer hours, but you didn't get paid, but it was still like your job because you needed it to progress. So that was probably my favorite because I didn't really feel like I was at work. I was on the beach, I was chilling, I was getting a good tan, and I felt very good, like I was doing something bigger than myself. So I remember that feeling as a lifeguard. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds very nice, especially because I feel like lifeguards is like the type of job that many students would love to do, but they don't go further and actually see how they could do it because they're worried about getting the certification and whatnot. So knowing that you went through those steps so that you could feel bigger than what you were at the moment is very inspirational. And is what would you say the benefit was of experimenting with all those jobs in high school?
The benefit was at each job, I learned a little bit more about myself, which helped me become who I am today and helped me grow in sales. Because ultimately, what I've learned in sales is people need to understand that you are the product. You're a brand just like Mercedes or Nike. People come to expect a certain thing when they go eat at Outback, and people expect a certain thing when they eat at Ruth Chris. And just like any other brand, you are a brand. So I learned through those different jobs that no matter what I was doing, first I was selling myself or being myself. Um, and you don't know that initially. You kind of figure that out, you know, as time progresses and you grow and learn as a person.
Mm, thank you. I have to agree. Even though I didn't work as many jobs, I worked one, and that one job alone allowed me to figure out a bit more about myself and how I could bring myself in front of other people and present myself in that way. So I can imagine the value in experimenting with multiple.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's also like it's a classic way also to like learn like kind of like railroads responsibility in a way and like handling money and just like budgeting. So a lot of like essential skills from like trying different things early on. So like even like after all of this, when exactly did you realize you want to go into sales?
So I was working at a hotel for a few years, and I managed the different departments and was working my way up. And I was put into sales by a general manager at the time. I didn't ask for the promotion, but I didn't say no. He thought that I had all the right attributes and that my talents would serve the hotel and the community better in sales than operations. And operations, um, is valid and important, but you're not touching or talking to the community. You're helping the guests once they arrive. It's more reactive than proactive.
Right. So
So once he was promoted into the position, um, I realized within the first 24 hours that this is what I love, is what I want to do, and how I want to continue growing and helping my community.
what was your favorite part about it that like I guess caught your attention the most?
What caught my attention the most is I always thought that sales was just transactionary, that you would just say, hey, give me your money, here's a product. And really, you're not doing that. In hotel sales, especially, I'm talking to people on some of the most important days of their life, whether it's their daughter's wedding or their mother's funeral. So you got to have compassion, love, and empathy. And then once I realized how hotel sales tax went into a different program. It's a 12.5% tax, and that tax goes in to a wild spaces public places tax, and then you take that money and reinvest into the community around you. Once I realized that, I was in for good.
It's very nice to hear how the emotional side of sales is what caught your attention more than what sales actually seems textbook wise. And I think a lot of people could, because I personally also had that misconception where I thought sales was mainly transactionary rather than hearing about the emotional side. So hearing that is very neat. Did you enter college knowing that you were going to go into sales? And if you did, where did you go to college and what did you study?
I went to St. John's in Palaco, Florida, and I transferred to Santa Fe College here in Gainesville, Florida. I studied business and philosophy, and both of those things are paramount in being successful in sales, although I didn't necessarily know that at the time.
Did you do
It's about mostly it's about relationship building, and I started building those relationships in college and at my job. Um, and then the philosophy part of it goes hand in hand with the business. People do business with people that they like, live by the golden rule, and it'll help you whether you're in sales, operations, or no matter what you do for the living.
Yeah, although you went into college doing business and ended up in sales, could you explain why you maybe thought that business would be what you were interested in college?
Absolutely. I chose business because I realized that it gave me a bigger blanket. It didn't pigeonhole me into like an art history major where I could only work at a museum. I was trying to cast a net where the information I learned I could apply in various different fields, because business analytics at hotels, car dealerships, Walmart, revenue's revenue and numbers are numbers to a certain extent. So once you understand uh, the base of how numbers work and revenue works, ROI and such things, then I knew I could take that information and apply it to pretty much any field.
That's understandable. And what inspired you to double major in philosophy?
Because I wanted to do something that I was really interested in, and it wasn't about money, but I knew that philosophy wasn't going to pay the bills.
Yeah.
But I still wanted to have my cake and eat it too, so to speak.
Yeah,
I didn't want, you know,
that's really nice that you got to do both. Get something where you guaranteed a bit of stability in your life while also maintaining your interests.
sure. And life is about balance. You can't have too much of anything or you'll fail.
Mhm.
No, definitely. I've always been a little bit interested in philosophy. I was always thinking about taking a logic class, but I never actually got around to doing it. Um, what was your like favorite kind of class in philosophy?
I would say favorite's too strong of a word because all the philosophy, what I've found is whether it was in the last 300 or the last 3,000 years are resounding pretty much the same message, whether it's Japanese philosophy, Greek philosophy, wherever the philosophy comes from, whether it was Marcus Aurelius or Lao Tzu, their end message was very similar, kind of like what you see with religions. They're all, most have very similar messages and rules.
Right, right.
So I found that very intriguing and felt like there's a lot of truth in things like that.
No, yeah, exactly. I think it also just kind of goes to show, like, despite like people's differences, like everyone kind of like still like wants to like lead a similar kind of life, and just like a lot of people just share more values than they would ever like actually expect.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I think this is our sign to join a philosophy class together.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, I think so.
Sure. Well, I think you'll both enjoy it and grow from it if you do. I certainly suggest it. And you don't feel like that you have to necessarily go to class to learn. You can get books, you can watch YouTube videos, you can be in nature. A lot of information is innate. It's inside of us if we just listen.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. But like speaking of like information everywhere else, would you describe your career, like your career path to being traditional or unconventional? And could you also like describe like the different types like ways like outside of college someone could get into sales?
Sure. The first half of that is I would describe it as unconventional. Um, and the reason why it was unconventional is because I worked in every other department before I got to sales, which gave me a great understanding of what I was selling, who I was selling it to, and why I was selling it. So that certainly helped. I think the conventional route is most people come from one sales role to another. Um, I would say that more important than going to college is life experience when it comes to sales. Um, Life experience, whether you start off at a kiosk selling jewelry in the mall, whether you're selling cars, but you can't beat experience and learning how to deal with your emotions, other people's emotions, and finally coming to the understanding um, that you simply can control the controllable and letting go of what's outside of that.
Oh yeah, that's very understandable that there's multiple like you yourself have gone through all these departments, got to kind of like taste test everything before realizing what you ended up on. And I think it's important that people take that. They may think it might be a waste of time, but I think instead it's actually very valuable, kind of taking in everything rather than trying to stick to one thing and thinking that's all there is to offer.
That's right.
Um, and I just wanted to ask, what would you say sales is in your own words, and how would you describe it to someone who has no idea what sales is?
Sales is building relationships, and like most things in life, whatever you put into it, that's what you'll get back. That's what I would say sales is. Sales is to me, whether people realize it or not, you're always selling yourself. You're always selling something. Your ideas, there's many things that we're always selling. So to me, um, it starts with the relationship building, um, and then it just follows your typical live by the golden rule, be honest, treat people how you'd like to be treated. But I feel like if you apply those tactics to any job, whether it's sales, operations, those same basic truths are going to make you successful.
Yeah. Mm. No, yeah, definitely. And I really like that you always like emphasize on relationships, because at least going into this, I didn't really understand how important it was to really like understand the people that you're communicating with and ultimately try to sell something with, because you have to have a good understanding of what they're thinking and I guess understand it from their perspective so you can be more empathetic and understanding of them, but also just like form a genuine relationship and help them out.
Absolutely. And that's mutually beneficial when you do that.
So what would you say that a big misconception about working in sales is?
I'd say the biggest misconception is, to reiterate what I stated earlier, is that you're just selling a product, that it's just a transaction, that you're like trading goods or services for money, and that's not really what sales is. Um, it's really about connecting as a human being, treating somebody like you'd like to be treated, and building a relationship, because you don't want just one sale. You want it to be back to back to back to back. Like if you do their graduation, you want to do their wedding, you want to do their bar mitzvahs, you want to do every time that family comes into town in a hotel, you want to be their home away from home. And not just individuals, that's for sports teams. That's for what I try to think of it is, what if it was me on that sports team or my daughter on that sports team? How would I like them to be treated when they arrived 2 states away, not knowing anybody, playing fierce competition? And when you treat people like that, they know what's genuine and what's fake, and they treat you that way back. They give you that genuineness back. They pay their bills, and then they come back and do it again.